For the last Sunday in July, you found the Georgia gang. And topping our agenda, the election is coming up and it's about him and her. In Cobb County, Tim Lee goes down to a stinging defeat. And in the era of disposable stadiums, it's dome doom. Some of the stories up for grabs on the Georgia gang.
From the Fox 5 studios, the Georgia gang starts now.
And we're glad you could be with us. We're going to turn to the Democratic National Convention in a few minutes. But we're going to begin with local politics because we had these extended runoffs and really some important results. 9 weeks from primary to runoff seemed like forever, but it finally came last week. And in Cobb County, one of the metro area's largest, Tim Lee, the county commission chairman, went down to defeat. Phil, you've been following that race now for, I guess, I'd say a year, right?
Right.
And ever the optimist, I actually thought in the runoff, Tim Lee would run a better race. No chance, 64 to 36.
Well, it was a blowout, and as virtually all of us except you predicted, he was going to go down in defeat with one word: transparency. He was not transparent. Everywhere I went in Cobb County, I just heard negativity about him. Yes, we'll give him credit for negotiating the Braves deal, but after that, boy, I tell you what, it went downhill. You had the bridge that no one ever knew how much it would cost the taxpayers. Then you had, at the very eve of this runoff, the stupid ordinance where you're going to stop people from letting cars and vehicles park. So Mike Boyce will be the new chairman.
Theron, you've run campaigns. It seems to me that Mike Boyce had the easiest job, the way it turned out. He didn't really have to campaign. He did. He worked hard. Mike Boyce did. Retired Marine colonel. But he was for everything Tim Lee had done. He was for the Braves. He thought the county was extremely well run. He just said, I believe I'd have done this differently.
You know, this is a perfect example of someone having the courage to really, quite frankly, put their name on the ballot. Because I agree with you, Dick. All he had to do was just basically be the alternative to Tim Lee.
Right.
But, you know, we talked about it on this show last year when we were talking about sort of how the plan and how the commission was transparent. There were closed meetings, and then there was sort of people showing up and sort of occupying the speaker list so other folks couldn't speak. And so,
by the way, that might have been a pivotal moment when they were denied the right to speak.
Right, and I think in a campaign, you know, you see those moments and you say, okay, you know what, the mood of the electorate is changing. And what's really sort of unfortunate about this is that it really brings sort of a negative tone over this new stadium that a lot of people are spending a whole lot of money to build. And so, you know, in these runoff elections, people were fired up to come back out against Tim Lee, and it was just very unfortunate for him.
And the Chamber of Commerce took a stinging defeat on that because they'd put all their resources behind. Final thought on this, Alexis. One of the things that comes up in this is, should taxpayers vote on stadiums for professional sports teams? Now, we don't do that around here. You hear that a lot in Cobb.
Well, I think it's a tricky situation because when you are doing big public-private partnerships, you have to make sure that you can have the opportunity to negotiate. But at some point, you do have to be more open about what you're doing. And I think one of the things that really aggravated the situation with Tim Lee was that there was always something else that the Braves wanted that he would promote or put
that got
forward.
revealed after the fact.
Yes, yes.
That's what it was.
Yes.
He was playing defense. He was on offense for a year, doing the biggest secret deal, a wonderful deal. We all praised it. And then he had to live with those leaks that kept coming out. Last of them was what you mentioned, Phil.
And no viable transportation plan. We hadn't even talked about that.
Right. But this is something that Atlanta needs to look very closely at. I mean, you know, Atlanta did it right with the new Georgia Dome that's going to be built, as you like to refer to it as the Arthur Dome. But at a time where you're going to be looking at Phillips Arena and other sort of sports, you know, franchises moving here or stadiums, you got to make sure that you're transparent with the people.
And then finally, I think maybe if the Braves do the right thing, they'll hire Tim Lee.
Well,
that would be a bad PR move.
Well, if he's done with public service,
but in a
sense, he might as well cash in.
In a sense, they owe him.
Right, exactly. I think they do.
I don't mean to sully his reputation in any way, but, you know, he is a classic in my mind, and I'll leave it at this, the old phrase, a prophet without honor in his own land. But Tim Lee is out, Mike Boyce is in, and we'll see how that plays. Now, there was another runoff in West Georgia, it was kind of south of the metro area, for Congress on the Republican side. That's Georgia's 3rd congressional district. Really no drama there. Drew Ferguson, the mayor of West Point, just clobbered Mike Crane, who came out of the legislature and the Tea Party movement. Ted Cruz, as you had pointed out, Phil, came to town a week ago to campaign for Mike Crane. Obviously didn't help, may have hurt.
Well, I think it did hurt. In fact, I advised last week that he call in sick. But that was a pivotal primary. You're going to have a presumptive new congressman next January in Drew Ferguson, and I think what helped Ferguson a lot was the very popular congressman who's stepping down, Lynn Westmoreland, endorsed him, and I think that was a tipping point.
Does that hurt Westmoreland when he runs for governor, if he runs for governor, with evangelicals and the Tea Party?
Well, I'll tell you what, when you're thinking about running for higher office, I mean, listen, he saved himself, him being Congressman Westmoreland, about $500,000 because he basically was on every single television station he could possibly be on. So I think that whether he chooses to run or not, he saved himself about $500,000 because he won't have to sort of get as known with the metropolitan area. Do I think it hurts him? Maybe not, but listen, at a time where no one can predict this mood of this electorate, who knows? But I think, honestly, if he's planning to run for governor, he's got a head start on some other folks because he's definitely got on television a lot.
Now, Alexis, in DeKalb County, there was a cleaning of the stables.
I wouldn't put it that way, but go ahead.
I believe the classical word is the Augean stables.
Okay.
But at any rate, Sharon Barnes Sutton, one of the commissioners, is gone, and she got just wiped out.
Yeah.
75% to 25% by a businessman, former Army veteran named Steve Bradshaw. Sharon Barnes Sutton made all the worst appeals to race. You and I were joking that I didn't understand the Candyland reference, and I'm not sure most voters did.
And
but
the Django Unchained reference.
well,
Did you
I
go
sort of
watch
knew there
that?
was a movie, and it was yeah.
Okay.
But
Well,
she's
it
gone.
was a vicious-
She's
Too
gone.
many. She had just had
Well,
too big an ethical cloud.
I was going to say there was a big cloud over her head anyway regarding some of the expenditures that she had done over the course of her tenure. So I think that the play to the racial, I guess, caricature and stereotypes was just a bit too far, and so she's gone.
5 memberships in the YMCA for her and her family that she could never explain.
Remember, she bought a picture of Barack Obama with taxpayer
Right.
money?
Right.
It was a silent auction at a charitable event. I mean, there
You
weren't.
can't defend
But
things like
I
that.
like something
but she-
Bradshaw said. He said, we're going to have some new leadership in this county. He named himself Michael Thurmond, who is the presumptive chief executive,
Right.
and the new district attorney, Sherry Boston.
Right.
I've got pretty good confidence in all 3 of them.
I think
from
it's,
what
a
I
great,
see.
it's a great
Yeah.
thing for that county that's...
But one of the things that I think was highlighted, and at a time where, listen, she lost, and that's very unfortunate, and she did do some good for her district. But you're right, the ethics challenges, and more importantly, the divide with North and South DeKalb, which you know very well, Dick,
Yep.
is something that is very, very prevalent in the county. And I think that going forward, those people that you mentioned will be
She
able
was
to
a
bring the
roadblock
county
to anything that hinted of any spending in North DeKalb. Constant roadblock. Now, also in DeKalb, however, that's the good news in DeKalb. Now there's the mixed news in DeKalb. Vernon Jones is back. What would we do on the Georgia Gang without Vernon Jones?
There'll be lots to
He
talk
returns
about.
to the State House in a district that is Rockdale County and East and South DeKalb. There was scuttlebutt the other day that Vernon Jones, he's got some seniority that he accrued before in the House. He could come back and be the chairman of the House delegation
Look at
for
that.
DeKalb County. Can you imagine? Can you imagine?
Well, listen, we got to give Vernon Jones some credit here. He definitely has paid his dues. And he's lost and he's lost and he's won and he's won. But to come back and run a campaign and and do as well as he did in runoff, it's just, to me, just someone who's got a lot of stamina for politics.
Yeah, he's the Energizer Bunny of politics. He lost for Senate.
Yeah.
He lost.
Congress.
He lost for Congress. And he lost for sheriff.
Yeah.
Right, that's right.
And here he is. He's back.
He's back.
He's also riding the Trump wave, too. He's been telling people that he likes Donald Trump.
Oh, wow.
Oh, boy.
That's when he used to remember when he used to hang out with Saxby Chambliss, implying that.
He's a bipartisan guy, Theron.
Oh, boy.
There's a couple more runoffs I want to get to, but we'll take a break first and regroup. So stay with us.
Have a question or comment for the Georgia Gang? Visit their website at fox5atlanta.com.
Forgive us for dwelling on these runoffs, but the Georgia Gang lives, eats, and breathes politics. Now, I know that only about 11% of Georgians cast votes last week, but we're not going to miss our opportunity to dissect them. And in my city of Brookhaven and your city of Sandy Springs, it's a mixed district, Megan Hansen, who has sat in that very chair won an absolute nail-biter, defined nail-biter. How about 29 votes? She wins over a fellow named Alan Cole for a state house
Now,
slot.
that was in
Right.
DeKalb, but in Fulton, she won by 100 votes.
Yes.
That's right. That's the Sandy
She
Springs
lost
part.
Brookhaven and won Sandy Springs.
Right.
That's right. And this is a key for people in Fulton County because that's the pivotal seat for whether the Republicans control the county delegation of the legislature or whether the Democrats do. So she'll be up against a freshman Democrat, Taylor Bennett. That will be a tough race. Money will be poured in on both sides.
Well,
Yeah.
let's boil it down to kind of a cliche. Taylor Bennett is a bright young hope of the Democratic Party.
Yes,
Right.
yeah.
He's young. He's very young. He's an attorney. He's well-spoken, all that. Megan Hansen is very young, a polished attorney, obviously polished enough to do this
Well-spoken.
thing we do. And I mean, that's a race that will see a ton of money
Yeah.
poured in by both Democrats and Republicans.
But one thing I gives me confidence, and congratulations to Megan. I mean, she's definitely a part of this Georgia gang family, and
Yeah.
I think she ran a good race. But one of the things I think to look for is that Taylor Bennett, as you pointed out, Dick, is very smart, very well connected, and he, in his first year in the session, I mean, he really got to work, and so I think that's going to be a tough
Well,
race.
he's very left wing. Now, whether that goes in
think you
that
can call him
district,
left-wing.
well, he is. I could go chapter and verse. I'm watching his
but
every vote, and
but
you'll see it.
But I think the district still leans Democrat, and I think that Taylor Bennett is taking his time.
Well, no, the district always votes Republican in presidential elections. Always.
That's true.
Yeah, but I mean, I
Always.
think that it's changing.
But the younger people moving in, the
Correct.
millennials,
The key are the millennials.
tend more to be Democrats.
And you got two
You're right.
millennials running against
But
each
even
other.
Mitt Romney carried that handily.
Yeah, well, I think Taylor Bennett will be fine in that election.
Well, no, he's a
Until
formidable
we
candidate.
expose his record.
Oh, boy.
And in Fulton County, not much except that Ted Jackson, the sheriff,
Yeah.
Prevailed over Richard Langford, the
By
former
2
sheriff from
points.
years and years ago.
Let me give you a footnote too. You talk about a nail biter with the Megan Hansen race, but here's a real nail biter. There was a state senate candidate who won by 8 votes over in Rockdale and DeKalb County, and that's Tanya Anderson. 8 votes, beat an incumbent. That was D. Hawkins.
D. Hawkins Hagler, yeah, Hagler.
And so that's the lesson of these runoffs. Every vote does count.
But let's not go over what happened with the sheriff's race. And so you really look at that race for those of us who actually live in Fulton County, and especially if you lived in South Fulton County. I mean, that was a very heated race between Langford and Ted Jackson, and ultimately Ted Jackson ran a really, really good campaign. I mean, he was very above board. There were a lot of attacks going on both sides of the campaign, but I think the voters basically looked at the leadership of Ted Jackson and said, listen, we want to continue that. But that was also a very, very contested race in Fulton County.
Well, Ted Jackson always has the subtle backing of Republicans when he runs countywide.
Well, they
because
came-
he's popular in North Fulton.
Right, he's
Because
very
he's the
popular in
former
North Fulton.
FBI special agent in charge.
But as people who, especially as Democrats who look to continue to be successful in Fulton County, you just can't campaign on the south side of town. I think you got to campaign up on the north side as well. So I think Ted Jackson did both of those.
Right. I also want to congratulate Keith Gamage for
Yeah.
Solicitor General in Fulton County. He succeeded.
Clint Rucker.
Beat Clint Rucker, which a lot of people were surprised by that.
All right, now let's turn to one of my favorite topics on the Georgia Gang, and that's Atlanta's peculiar history of disposable stadiums. You know, we build them, and then we tear them down. And the latest to go will be the Georgia Dome, one of the newer ones. And they announced this week that the Georgia Dome will be imploded in 2017. I got to say, I think there's some risk in that. If the roof isn't working on the new Mercedes-Benz Stadium for the
Wait a
Falcons, and they go ahead and tear down the dome,
What will they do? Where
what
will
are they going to do? Where are they going to play? I mean, I don't
Well, they just
mean to
won't
be.
close it up. They'll just play with an open stadium, right?
Well, I guess they
remember
would.
the last
That's
Super
the whole
Bowl in
point,
2000, we had the ice storm. They said, better be careful.
But so we've got that stadium about to be blown up. It's only, what, 20-something years old?
Correct.
And then also this week, Georgia State and its developers announced what was going to happen to Turner Field. Now, it's not going to be imploded. It's going to be modified into a college football facility, and there'll be a baseball facility nearby for Georgia State. But I liked the rather dense urban planning that goes into that Georgia State site plan.
Well,
and
I
they're
agree.
talking about streets with squares, so people can walk and meet on the green and that kind of thing. I think it's very, very good.
Well, it is a good plan. It's a shame that none of this could have happened years ago under Mayor Reed, where we could have had that for Turner Field. That was one of the main reasons.
Well, the main
one of the main
reason-
reasons
how
that
does
why the
Turner Field-
Braves left.
That's why the Braves left. They couldn't control it.
Thank you. That's exactly why they left. They
Well,
couldn't
hello,
control
the
it.
mayor could have helped out.
The mayor did help out, Phil. And I
Well,
think,
you always guys are going to defend him.
No, but you attacked him first, and so I think the mayor did help out. And listen, the mayor, and it's public record. I mean, there's been open records requests that shows that the city of Atlanta was in a very intense negotiation with Atlanta Braves. But let's go back to the Mercedes-Benz, dome. Listen, I think that this process has been handled well. I mean, if you look downtown, I mean, it's beautiful, and I think that I was ultimately sort of tearing down or imploding the Georgia Dome is something they got to do because it's part of the plan to make sure that this is a.
Well, they need it for parking, and tailgating, and an atmosphere.
And including a new hotel also.
Correct.
And the other thing about the GSU was like 70-some acres, right, where the Turner Field is, and they got 200 and some acres in Cobb County for the Braves. That's what they wanted, was a bigger tract of land to develop.
They wanted something that was more 365 instead of just 80 home dates.
Right.
And they built an economic complex. Real quickly, as we're getting the wrap up here, I think it's interesting. Georgia Power agreed with the PSC on the percentages of renewable energy that we use, the Obama stuff, and it will amount to 12% of their portfolio, bringing power into our homes and offices.
Solar,
that's pretty impressive.
Solar, it is impressive. And we actually are now having more solar in the state than liberal California.
And who knew? And everybody was so against that on the Republican side.
Well, I don't know. It's good that you have a diverse portfolio.
Yes.
But I think the key is clean, safe nuclear power. And the same Public Service Commission this past week voted properly, with the exception of Bubba McDonald, to go ahead with the study on this site near Columbus for a second nuclear power plant.
But it just shows you that Georgia Power is basically, we're, as Georgians, we're getting in line with other states. This was a great move. It was a very progressive move for them. And I think ultimately more and more people need to applaud them on that. I think it was really good.
Well, yeah, and then buying the gas company, too. I mean, they're on the move.
Yeah.
They have a very good diverse portfolio. There's no question.
All right. And you won't know when you turn on your lights if it's coming from solar, it's coming from nuclear, it's coming from...
It's just called reliability.
Yes, and it's not Solyndra.
No.
It's somebody else's solar. When we come back, we'll talk about Solyndra. No, we won't. We'll talk about Hillary Clinton's week in front of the Democrats in Philadelphia, and Georgians played a big role. Stay with us.
Have a question or comment for the Georgia Gang? Visit their website at fox5atlanta.com.
There were times watching the Democratic convention this week that I felt I'd not even left home. There in Philadelphia was half of Metro Atlanta, or so it seemed. Many of them at the podium, most of them angry. I mean, it just seemed angry to me. Everybody seemed angry. But we had Kasim Reed gave a good speech in kind of a minor role. He was introducing Michael Bloomberg. It didn't make the main networks. It was the cable crowd. That's the junkies like us. We're glued to it. Yeah. And Kasim used the phrase that the goal, the holy grail, if you will, is diversity without division.
Correct.
Diversity, not a bad phrase. Yeah. Kind of how Atlanta operates. Yeah. I just wish, and a couple of you folks are pretty close to the mayor. I wish Kasim Reed just didn't seem so angry. Well, Cory Booker didn't seem angry, the senator from New Jersey.
Yeah, he's a happy warrior. But Kasim is a more serious warrior, so he doesn't smile as much. But when he does, it's $1 million smile.
Yeah, I don't think he came off as angry as well. I thought the speech was very good.
I was thinking about people who don't know him.
Yeah, well, but no, ultimately, I think that he really made a good speech. One of the things that I liked about the speech is that, he used the term diversity over division, and he also talked about some of, the things that he's doing in Atlanta. And we all agree how he handled the Black Lives Matter peaceful protesting in Atlanta was something that I think that he was sort of making on the national stage. I think, yes, it was a little, sort of mixed up as far as the lineup. But listen, he introduced Mike Bloomberg. And if you really go back and listen to Mike Bloomberg's speech, I mean, to me, that was sort of going to the independents. And him and Mike Bloomberg have an intimate relationship. So ultimately, I think it was a great speech for him. I mean, he was on the national spotlight. And I think ultimately it was...
he couldn't help himself, though. He had to take a jab at former Mayor Shirley Franklin. I don't know why he does that, saying that, I made this such a better thing from my predecessor.
The city was broke, I fixed it.
There was no need for that.
But he was talking about the city coming out of recession. And
well, even you have to admit that could be phrased a lot better. Shirley Franklin did a lot for the city, and he always jabs her.
Bottom line is...
Speaking of Shirley Franklin, she co-chaired the platform committee.
Well, there you go.
And so she had an integral part in the race as well. And Stacey Abrams was also there. She's the House Minority Leader here. And Bernice king.
She gave the
Gave
invocation on the final night.
On the final day. So
And Jason Carter got to
Jason- that's
introduce
right,
his
don't forget about
grandfather.
Jason.
And he smiled. Jason Carter smiled.
Jason's a happy warrior too.
Yeah, I like it. You know, I mean, I know conventions are serious business, but where's the smile? Where's the fun?
Well,
It's
they were,
supposed to be fun.
they were full of smiles. I think you definitely didn't see any smiles the week before, Dick, with all the
Well,
people chanting "lock her up."
I would
So,
say
you know,
I would say it for both
No,
conventions.
they were smiling when they said lock her up.
No, they were frowning.
not.
They were
They
definitely.
were
There are
angry.
reasons. I mean, remember, Bernie Sanders' people thought it was a rigged convention, and Theron, I did look at a tape back in March on the Georgia game
Sure.
where you said it would be a unified convention.
It was
and-
unified. It had a
wait
rocky
a
start.
minute.
It had a rocky start.
Well, they kept
But
doing
a
it.
rocky
Wait.
start,
Yeah.
but it's
You know,
unified.
Leon Panetta gave one of the serious speeches about foreign policy and terrorism and kept getting interrupted by the Bernie Sanders crowd shouting no more war. It really threw him off his gate.
Yeah, it did.
He didn't know what
I
to
tell
do.
you what, the party has moved very far to the left,
Exactly.
even when Hillary
Come
ran
on,
in
but
2008.
but the Bernie Sanders group was a minority amount, and plus the good thing is they were inside the convention. They weren't outside on the
She
street.
won with a fewer margin of delegates, think about this, than any Democratic nominee since 1984.
Yeah,
It
but
was
she
a-
also got 3 million more popular votes. But let's not miss this moment. Let's not let these guys miss this moment. This is the first time in our history that a woman of a major party was nominated to go on to be a
You
nominee
know, it
for
wasn't
president.
such a
of the
big
United
deal because I think she's been
States.
seen as inevitable for so
it all-
long.
But no, it wasn't
I don't think
inevitable.
it
But it
was.
was basically what we talked about was shattering these glass ceilings. And I think that it was a very, very big moment for our country.
It was a big moment. However, there's going to be a woman as president of the United States one day. I hope it's not going to be Hillary. I hope it's not going to be Hillary.
I
But
think
what was
it'd be
funny, Dick, you had this parade of character witnesses trying to help someone with no character.
Oh my
That's
God.
a terrible thing for you to say.
No,
and
this is
character
true.
never
You
came
want to
up.
get into this? She has lied repeatedly
No,
on
no, no,
various
no.
things.
Well-
She talks about the Iran deal the other night. How that's such a great thing for the. Well, that's a lie.
Yo, calm down. It's
That
all
is
right,
a
man.
lie.
I know it's hard
No,
for
I
you
know
to get
you
through
love-
this week.
you
I
love
know it's
Hillary.
hard. It was
Well-
hard for this week, but it's okay.
No, I tell you what, she's got to be called out on this, just like
Her
you call
speech-
out Trump.
I do.
Her speech was summed up by the obvious presence on television of her husband, Bill Clinton, falling asleep.
Oh, wow.
Well, she's always said that her forte is not in the speaking. Her forte is in the doing. So we'll see. She's going to get things done, and that's going to be the difference.
Okay, we got to get out. We're getting waved here, but here's a sure thing. I'll take Ivanka Trump over Chelsea Clinton.
Oh, no, that's wrong.
No.
That's wrong. No, Chelsea did a
That's
wonderful
what
job.
Donald
Chelsea
Trump
did a
says,
wonderful
too.
job.
When we come back, winners and losers.
Time now for the week's winners and losers.
We conservatives just watched a week of losers, so we got a big field to pick from.
I don't want to go down a long list of
Go ahead,
losers.
Phil.
Hillary Clinton, loser. But anyhow, I will make a winner. John Yates, who is leaving the
Yes.
legislature. He is 94 years old, a World War II vet, the only one in the General Assembly. He almost won his May primary, but like we talked about, these runoffs are tricky with turnout. And so he's a winner, even though that he's at retirement. And you know, let me say a word about our colleague that's sometimes here on our Georgia Gang family too, and that's Matt Towery, the Fox 5 political analyst, and of course we know him for polling. But he's also a prominent lawyer in town, and Stetson University Law School put him on their Hall of Fame, which I thought was a great honor. And so hats off to Matt.
Great.
Hats off, Stetson.
Yes.
Fun.
Thank you. You got it.
Darren.
Listen, the big winner has definitely got to be Hillary Clinton, the next president of the United States of America. The DNC, how they handled 4 days of just optimism, coming with real solutions and talking about America's future. I think that all the people that we left out John Lewis. Congressman Lewis also had a very key role in the DNC as well. And so I think that my loser has to be, and I know I may get in trouble for doing this on Fox 5, but Bill O'Reilly. I'm sort of saying in response to Michelle Obama's speech about slaves building the White House, and now in 2016, her 2 children are able to play on the lawn. For him to come back and make a comment was saying, well, at least they were well fed, and at least they were, lodging was there for them. Listen, slavery is slavery, no matter how you phrase it.
He was trying to make an historical point.
But that's the problem.
And it was incorrect, too, as
And then
it
the-
turns
No,
out.
they did get fed and housed.
Oh,
Now,
no.
well-fed is a judgmental thing.
But another first lady,
Yes,
was
they're in
Abigail, somebody, Adams,
Yeah.
said they were ill-fed and ill-kept.
All right, Go ahead.
And she was an eyewitness.
The ball's with you.
Oh, all right. My winner is going to be Vic Belloc, who was one of the producers of the convention. He was the original creator of the Hollywood Bureau of the NAACP and helped to develop the Image Awards. So he really did a great job of putting that together. And all of the Georgia participants during the convention, and of course Hillary Rodham Clinton, going to be the first woman to be the president of these United States, and it's high time.
Okay.
Take a deep breath. Take a deep breath.
Yeah.
Get ready, y'all.
New Zealand.
Go
What do you
ahead.
think? New
I
Zealand.
don't think she's going to make it.
All right, we're
the
running out
polls
of time.
don't look good.
Running out of time. I
Wow.
want to salute Don Stewart, longtime announcer and the old beautiful music station, WPCH, and Cracker Crumbles, right? The spoof shows we used to do. Don Stewart was a player in those. He died this week at 84. And if you've been struggling to watch the Braves, actually, I've given up. They're truly the worst ever. But there's always good news. The Falcons are in camp. Football is on the college level is about 3-4 weeks away. I think we can hang in. See you next week on the Georgia Gang.